But then for my work, I'm in charge of sales at our company is Waveblock, and there's a scripture that we all know the scripture that goes along the lines of, a man shall have this and great wisdom and great wealth and great blah blah blah, but if he does not have love, he has nothing, right? And we all know that one. Well, it was kind of similar for me in the physical world, because I've been in sales. I was kind of like a jack of all trades, and I was doing marketing, and I was doing this, and I was doing all these different things. And but sales had been in the tank for about a year and a half, and a salesman without sales has nothing. It was kind of the same thing as with the get man love. Anyway, so basically what happened is we had this big trade show in November, and right afterwards, my boss calls me in, and I've been a pretty integral part of this company's growth over the last 10 years. And my boss calls me in, and he basically said, we're not happy with the number of sales that you brought in. Understandable, been very minimal, 0. And but it's normally each sales rep will make 2 or 3 sales a year. But if you go with it for a year and a half without, that's pretty bad. And we've had other guys who still have not had any luck there. So anyway, so my boss calls me in, and also during this time, there had been a real rift that had happened between me and my boss. And he in any event, he basically just said, look, you're not producing the sales that we're looking for, so we're going to put you on pretty much all commission, right? So if you haven't made a sale in, let's say, a year and a few months, going on to all commission is kind of like not really eating or paying a mortgage, right? And Valerie she was also had been laid off a little while ago, so she was living a life of leisure as well. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is heavy, right? And I really had no choice but to really cry out to God. And essentially I was forced to live by faith. And it was, it's not easy living by faith, but I had to. And I really enjoyed the life of comfort. I didn't really want to live by faith. You see all these guys, missionaries like Wayne, he's living by faith. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want that. That's nuts. It's heavy, how am I going to pay my mortgage and all these kind of things. So I really cried out to God and really, really persevered. And just at that time, I had this project with a group down in Australia called Village Roadshow, or Warner Brothers, and they have a water park called Wet n Wild. And we were really close at that stage to finalizing a deal. So I was like, okay, at least if I can get this one, that'll really get things going, and then it won't be so bad. And so we had the house church, and we actually have, and the house church was really integral through this whole process. And there are certainly, like Gene over here, whenever there's something that we'd need, you'd send out a prayer request or something, and then Gene would send it to everyone. She's like, her nickname is General. Because she's like the general getting stuff done. And so we call her General. And John McKenna, who's not here, he's also, he would always encourage, no matter what, no matter how bad things look. He's like, it's going to happen, Kaboom! So, anyway, so that's pretty cool. But
done deal.
It's a done deal.
It's a done
Anyway, it wasn't a done deal, like 2 weeks after that. And there was so much fervent prayer, and I was really going after it. And God basically just said, no, it's not going to happen. And the deal just fell apart. And it really looked like this one was going to happen. So I was really, bummed out. And then after that, the Lord gave me a word. And I'm going to read the scripture. I forget where it is, because I copied and pasted. But I'm just going to read it. It's all about it's in Exodus. Exodus something 7. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, because your people whom you brought up out of Egypt have become corrupt. They have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them, and have made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. They have bowed down to it and sacrificed to it, and have said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt.'" Clearly this really ticked God off. No end, right? He wanted to smite them. And when I read that the first time, I was like, wow, this is pretty significant. Why? And then when I read it again, I realized what it was all about. And essentially, what was happening is the people were essentially praising this golden calf, right? And they said, "These are your gods of Israel who brought you up out of Egypt." And God said, whoa, hold on a second. That piece of gold didn't bring you up out of Egypt. I brought you up out of Egypt. And how did I bring you up out of Egypt? I protected you, and I provided for you. I gave you manna from heaven and all these kind of things. And but they were still worshipping this calf, and we all kind of know how the story goes. But what really made God upset was that, and this is why idolatry is a thing that pops up throughout the Bible, is that these people were giving glory to something that didn't really deserve it. And God was the one who deserved it. And I was like, wow, my bosses are like my calf, because I'm giving them glory for paying my salary, whereas they're not really the ones that are giving me my income. It's God is the one who's giving me my income. God is giving me my protection, and God is giving me my provision. And so I shouldn't really look to these people for my protection, my provision. I should be looking to God. And that was a pretty significant moment. Because that's exactly what I was doing. I would do all these things to try and get favor from my boss. And at the end of the day, I wasn't really seeking God's favor. And so that was really one of the first turning points for me in this whole process. Because right in the beginning, I thought to myself, okay, things are going bad. What do I do? Well, let me turn to God and really pursue it, and hopefully it turns around. And then once it turns around, we'll be good again. Well, that's not really what God wanted, right? God wanted things to turn around, but he also wanted a character change to take place. And so he kind of chose the long route. And was really hoping for the shortcut there for a while. It didn't quite work out. So anyway, that's kind of where things were at that point, and then sales were still pretty dry. But I could certainly start to see things picking up at work. I could start to see some activities happening. And granted, that was probably because I was working 10, 11-hour days and have been ever since.